our mission is to inform decision-making in Kenya through policy innovation, research analysis, and dialogue. And for the last, and I have to mention this, for the last 3 years, we have been implementing a project that I mentioned in collaboration with Kenyatta University. And basically the project is on what works for women in this country.
We are undertaking a research or a program for the last 2 years or so. Early 2020, we got a grant from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to undertake a 5-year program called the Initiative of What Works to address women's economic empowerment. And what we are doing is we are using an evaluative approach. I know for a very long time, you have not had the university come to the people. Generally, we have been used to undertaking a lot of research. That's the role of the university, teaching, research, and outreach. But for a while, our research, which is a lot, has only ended up in our archives or in our libraries. We have very huge libraries in the universities. In fact, in Kenyatta University, our library is 10 floors. And all those 10 floors are full of research data that has been generated by professors, faculty, and also the students. Unfortunately, that data is generated through a lot of money. We use a lot of money to do research, but it does not reach the general public. Once we store it there, we put it in international books, journals, and it's read by so many other people, sometimes not even Kenyans. So this initiative took us out of the ivory towers and brought us to the people. What we are using is we looked at programs that have been put forward by state and non-state actors to address women's economic empowerment, and we are evaluating to see what works. Once we know what works, or what has been proved to be working, we are able to package that information and share it with who? Other stakeholders. Key among them is the media, like you people. Also, the Kenyan government, both national and county government, Wanjiko herself and her counterparts, who are both men and women, that's the grassroots people. And this information is able at least to influence policy, to influence what actually can be done thereafter.
The KU We Hub has been carrying out a research known as Initiatives for What Works to Improve Women's Economic Empowerment. Because we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of programs, but again, when we talk about poverty, the most poor, it is women. Yet we have all these funds for women. So why do women remain poor? And therefore, what initiatives would work to improve women's economic empowerment in Kenya? Once women are economically empowered, then the rest can fall in place. The rationale is to address the weak nexus between women's economic empowerment, policies, and programs, and gender data. One of the things you'll hear, even those of you who attend CSW in New York in March, for Africa there is no data. And therefore, in Kenya we decided, let's make a difference. Let's provide this gender data. What was the goal? To promote women's economic empowerment through policy-driven research. And this policy-driven research is informed by gender data, by women's data. The overall outcome is that our research will be utilized by governments, by implementing agencies, by the private sector, the donors to shape policies, programs, and all players to in the interventions and advocacy efforts related to supporting women's economic empowerment in Kenya.
We exist to promote professionalism and excellence in journalism. That's our core mandate. And as a professional association, our members are editors, senior editors in the newsrooms, whose core mandate is, to gatekeep They're the ones who decide what headlines go on the newspaper. They're the ones who decide what stories make it to the editorial agenda. And we are glad that you invited us for this, because then that is the beginning of understanding of difficult, we would say technical or complex subjects. Then with such kind of forums, then journalists are able to understand better, even ahead of the launch. Media remains under siege in Kenya because disruption has taken place, and especially with the new age of social media. So from the wider perspective, we know that very many newsrooms have been affected because of the changing landscape of media.
On the ownership of land and documentation, and we've seen a lot of ongoing projects under the National Lands Commission of automating the system, and we also have the new land laws that were introduced, and this aspect again involves land transaction in matrimonial property. So we've seen the data and we've seen who is disproportionately affected. So again, policy implication given the data on land ownership is there is need to 100% enforce the spousal consent legal provisions in land transactions in order to cushion women and children from disposition of family land. Again, health insurance coverage. During the just concluded meeting in February by the African Union, Kenya was actually commended for the progress we've made in our health sector, especially when it comes to maternal health, newborn child care. And as much as we celebrate this progress made, we can tell that if we do not address the challenges that exist there, then most likely we are going to lose on the gains made in this area. So that means full implementation of the commitments on universal health coverage, because universal health coverage means everyone will have access to health services without having to suffer financial losses, and that means then everyone will be covered and no one will be left behind, and UHC is the only way to reduce the burden of out-of-pocket health expenditure for Kenyans.